It's Nico Penguin, and today's episode is an exciting dive into the world of business automation and tech innovation. We have a special guest today, Pete Romano, a business automation architect and tech visionary from Jersey City, New Jersey. Get ready for insights, inspiration, and a fascinating blend of creativity and technology. Thank you so much for joining us today, Pete.
It's great to be here with you, Nico. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, tremendously. And as mentioned, I did want to just quickly talk about any connection that you have towards gaming, any favorite games that you played. What is your relationship that you've had so far with gaming?
Um, for me, it's all about the classics. I grew up with the NES and the old school Sega
Mm,
Genesis and all of that, and for getting into just even Legend of Zelda or Metroid, or I'll be honest with you, I'll be honest right here. Just 2 days ago, I'm sitting here on
mhm,
my couch, and I was scrolling through TikTok, and a Contra video came up. I don't know if you guys remember that Konami was the company that
mm,
put out Contra. I
mhm.
actually just went back to my youth. I had to download the emulator, and I just started playing on my keyboard, just classic Contra, and trying to figure out, the up arrow is the A or the B or the space bar. And so for me, it's all about the classics.
Oh, that's so interesting. And there's no such thing as, making it lame or whatever, because everybody has a different gaming journey. And that brings me to what I want to know is what was your earliest interaction that you remember with technology, and when did you find out that that's what you want a career in?
Well, I'll answer your question in a different way. Sometimes I think, what is it? Because if you have the, excuse me, the benefit of falling into a career that you love, and sometimes you want to reflect back to, well, what were the early seeds of that? Can you, and so you spend a lot of time in your head, as I do. And
Mhm,
I think too, as you mentioned, I'm an automation implementer for businesses. I think back to times when I was, hanging rope and threads and mechanisms and motors around my bedroom to
mhm,
open doors and close windows, and I was playing with constructs and different gears just to get things moving, and Legos. I was always into building things, and I was always into cause and effect. If I do this, then this is going to happen. If I do that, then this is going to happen.
right.
And so when I think back, I would have never known it at the time, but that's what I think of as an early seed of what I eventually got into now.
Hmm. And because you have this constant cause and effect ability to or activities or different material around you that led you to want to dive into tech. Now, what specifically made you want to do a business automation architect, and what exactly is that?
Well, that's great. Thank you for setting me up with that. It's been a pretty circuitous path towards where I am right now. Early on, I was a musician. I went to music school in New York. I was a composer for films and television. And I got into working with small businesses, and I was doing marketing and video editing and website development and doing all sorts of creative work. But what I really
Mhm,
recognized was that businesses, despite what they were asking for, which was marketing and help me grow my business, what I started to recognize, even though I was just a starting entrepreneur, was that I can't, this guy who wants more leads, I'm going to dump a bunch of leads on his desk. His business is going to fall apart. It's like you're taking
mm,
jet fuel and trying to put it into your lawnmower. And so that pushed me into figuring out, well, what are the mechanisms? What is the difference between a Bank of America and a local credit union? What is the difference between all state insurance and a small independent broker? And what that
mhm,
difference is systems. It's the ability
mm,
to which you can build systems around your business, around yourself. I mean, systems around yourself that are going to help automate things. It's like that scene in Iron Man when he's talking about, well, is the Iron Man machine a weapon? And Stark is like, no, it's not a weapon. It's just a really sophisticated prosthesis. And so that's what an entrepreneur has to do. That's the
Mhm,
job of
mhm.
an entrepreneur. It's like you have these, your business might be making pies or making cakes or making pizzas. But if you're an entrepreneur, you're inventing a way in which you're going to make those pizzas, make those pies, better, faster, and grow. And it's about inventing systems, and the product is almost secondary to the system that you created.
Now, do you enjoy creating the system or do you enjoy tweaking someone else's system in a more effective manner? Which one do you prefer?
Well, that's interesting. That's a great question. You know, you kind of have to do both. You can't avoid doing either one. Like there's a lot of analogies I could use. You're flying the plane while building it.
Mm,
I started to say, I was a big Yankees fan, and 20 years ago they built a new Yankee Stadium. The old Yankee
mhm,
Stadium wasn't good, and it was falling apart. The seats were falling apart, but now they wanted to build a new Yankee Stadium, but the Yankees couldn't take off. So you had to figure out, well, how, imagine the logistics of that, moving a highway
right.
around, moving
Mm,
buses around, moving parking lots, and like this constant sort of shifting around as this organism is sort of taking a different shape. I find the process really fascinating. In fact, I take an almost physics like approach, an almost biological approach to
mm,
thinking that a business is like looking at the cell in an organism and seeing all the little
right.
things that are happening in it. And you just need to figure out, well, how do I start to multiply that into something bigger than myself?
Mm. And so that's how you see yourself as a business automation architect?
That's exactly the case is that if you're an entrepreneur and if you're out there listening, if I was asked to give any kind of advice about, like to succeed in any endeavor, oftentimes
Mhm.
it's like you just sometimes ask yourself, well, what's the framework in which success looks like? So
Mm,
the framework for me of what success looks like in business automation and just business in general is that if you can figure out the exact like it's like Tuesday night, right? It's Tuesday night. We're recording at
yes.
9 p.m. and your
Mhm,
business is in action. There's things happening right now, and there's customers at
right.
point A, there's customers at point M, and they're all overlapping and wherever they are in your process, right?
Mhm,
So and it muddies up your thinking because you're thinking, well, I want to grow. How do I get there? What do I have to do? What do I do? Because you can only pay attention to one thing at a time, right? So,
correct, correct.
right. So if you're going to pay attention to anything, you're going to focus. Start thinking like this. When you have some downtime, go over to a whiteboard or go, grab some piece of paper and really have the discipline to put everything else out of your mind and think about how does a customer, just one single customer, I know there's 100 going on at a time right now, but how does one customer just move through my processes from step A to step B? And then what happens at step B? Do they go directly to step C or do they skip over step C and go to D? And if they say
Hmm,
this at step D, well, do they go to E or do they go to F or do they go to G? Or maybe they jump all the way over to M because they're ready to go. And so that's what building a business is. And that's what the job of an entrepreneur is. And that's the framework that I try to work within. And as it comes to automation, well, how does automation play into that?
mhm,
It's that every one of those steps can be either an input from an employee, it's either an
mhm.
input from a customer, or it's an input from some sort of automation. And the more that you can put automation to work in, you're freeing your employees up of mundane, minutia that's just keeping them busy and wasting money.
Now, are you speaking about automation in terms of email marketing, or what sort of automation are we speaking about?
Yeah, so great question. My personal expertise is in, like you said, email marketing, process management. I'm not necessarily talking about robotics or building things or assembly lines necessarily. Although we work with, I have a client. Our company has a client in Pennsylvania. They
Mhm.
literally build houses on an assembly line, and you see
Wow.
pieces, large rooms or 2 or 3 rooms moving down an assembly line, just like you would see a Ford Model T, people
Mhm,
with
mhm.
swinging hammers on it. And so my focus is on, if somebody comes to your website and then they they act like they're going to make an order, and then but they don't. Well, what do you do?
Right.
How do you handle that? Or if somebody submits a form, what does the email say when it responds to them? Or does it go to a human? Or does it ring a phone call? Or does it send a follow-up text message? Or does it drop a letter in the mail? Or does it
Mhm.
pop open an AI bot to start chatting with you immediately? There's any, along that path, A to Z, you can get very, very creative about what you want the customer to experience as they move down your process. And it's really just about that. It's about you having the discipline and the imagination to say, this is my business and I'm setting the agenda. I'm setting these steps that you're going to go down. And if you sort of veer off to here, well, I already got a catch for that. Or if you veer over to here, well, I already got a catch for that, and kind of refocusing into the direction that you want. And that's what building a purposeful business is.
Now, do you feel that there are sometimes difficulties in trying to catch all the potential situations that could arise, or b providing too many to overwhelm the potential client or prospect by showing like, hey, there's like 17 things that could occur, and each one of these things, these are the subsequent follow-up directions that would, optimize your workflow, or here are the only two things in this situation, so that way you don't get overwhelmed.
Oh my God, that's such a great question, Nico. Thank you. So I mean, you're into computer science, you're into programming, right? I think a
Yes.
phrase that I've heard is edge case scenarios, where um, some things happen more often than others, and so hey, that's a different situation. That's an edge case. Why don't we table that for another time? Because there's this great Steve Jobs interview where he's just talking about, it's
Mm.
really difficult to make things easy. And he gave this interview maybe around 1983, 1984, when personal computers were barely a thing. And he was just remarking on the irony of, hey, we're Apple. We want to go after this home personal computer market,
Mhm.
and it needs to be cheap and cost effective for the home consumer. And he's just remarking that the irony is that to make something cheap but also make it easy is really hard.
Right.
And to like you're saying, to catch all of those scenarios, uh, you can't necessarily think of them. And I've sort of become comfortable with the fact that no matter how much thought I put into a user interface or a customer flow, that somebody's going to come along the very next day and click somewhere that I didn't predict them to click, and they're going to, break something. And you want that to happen, because the minute that happens, uh, you just patch that and you fix it. And that's what I love about this process, is that it's iterative and you're always just making it better.
Hmm. Now that's actually pretty interesting because it's almost it's almost acknowledging that it was something outside of the scope of your understanding, and then patching that as soon as it does occur, so that way moving forward you have that as an additional uh, option that it could occur.
Yeah, it's like what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And and getting back to this gaming concept and this analogy, is that I just, well, one of the reasons why I just love those old games is because you hear these stories of these programmers that had to fit an entire Legend of Zelda saga on like 16K or 18K of memory, and they're
Right, right.
figuring out all sorts of crazy ways, and to do it with a stereo music and 4 tracks of audio. And so they had these
Mhm.
tight boxes to work within. and that forces you to boil things down. And so what I love about the business process is that it's just like the programming process. Any entrepreneur out there who's into programming, get into business, because what you're going to recognize is that that same skill that you build up, this the set of rules around a piece of software, is the same kind of skill set that you're applying to a business. A business is just a set of rules, like I was saying.
Mhm.
If A happens, then B happens, then C, and it's just about moving a customer from a lack of
Mhm.
awareness to awareness to product interest to signing to onboarding to delivery. And that's a software game. That's software right there. And so I try to boil everything down to the simplest set of rules in software and in business.
Now, I do have a question regarding uh, results or information. So, how would you actually measure the success of a business automation solution? Is it the fact that the client didn't have a process in place and you provided them? Is it the fact that you optimized their process to increase sales, engagement, likes, or whatever they're tasking you, or some other criteria that measures success in a different manner?
It can be all of the above. I mean, you're hitting home runs there, Nico. I had a client remark the other day, "Hey, man, hey, Pete, our sales team is just so much more productive because it used to take them an hour and a half to make every single quote for a client, and now we could do it on your system for in 4 minutes."
Oof.
Like, think about how much time that saves. I mean,
Right,
you're a
right.
company with uh, 8 well-paid salespeople, men and women in their 40s and 50s, with lives, with children, with dogs, with interests, and now you want them to close deals. You're putting this downward pressure on them to perform, to increase sales in the context of the life that they're trying to live. And so they're giving you these little bits of their life to you to make that money to go feed their family. And now we come along and we're able to reduce some of that time by 90%. I mean, think about how much capital you're freeing up in terms of human capital, personal capital, just returning the life back to these people. That's that's one of my favorite stories.
Hmm. Now, before we continue, as a guest here, I want you to give the opportunity for the audience to simply let them know where they can support you, where they can follow you, anything of that nature. So that way you get your opportunity.
Well, for us, we want to be a tool of empowerment for entrepreneurs. We want to be a tool that gives people the confidence that they can get into business so that they can lead a better life. This country is all about empowering the entrepreneurs to get out of the W-2 world and start making a life for yourself. And so, if that's something that your audience is into, we invite you to visit us at segwik.com. It's segwik.com. Right there, you can book directly on my personal calendar. You're going to learn all about what it is that we do. We'll meet with you. We'll hear about your business, and we'll give you some direction. We'll give you a framework to think about. And if it's the right time, we'll strike up an engagement, and we'll do some great stuff together.
Perfect, perfect. So I put it up on screen
There you go.
for the audio only listeners. That's
Right
segwik.com.
there.
Check that out. All right, perfect. So back to the business automation side. Now, did you have to go to school or have a specific college degree to become a automation architect, or is that something that you do certificates on the job training, or how do you even try to get into
Well,
that career?
you know, I mentioned earlier my path to this being on this show with you was very, very circuitous. Probably not the path that most would take. I ended up teaching myself programming. Like I said, my training was
Hmm.
in musicians and arts and playing rock and roll and producing records, and that was my background. And so
Mhm.
um, you would think that building an efficiency system, a customer management system, would have roots in a person that was super organized, and but it's just really quite the opposite. What I recognized early on when I started my first business was I really need barriers to work within. And then when
Mm.
I would go out into the market, I would look at the tools that were on the shelf, and I would try to make them work for me in the context of my clients. So I want to do this with the tool. I wanted, but I kept hitting roadblocks. I just kept hitting roadblocks. So
Mhm.
I just teamed up with some programmers, and we started to fund this thing so that we could have a tool of our own, so that we could program as we wanted, so that we could make it do whatever it is we wanted. We could prioritize features as we wanted. And so I didn't really come at this with any uh, um, formal training in that world. Taught myself everything. And we're at our agency, we're passing this on. One of my best employees is a female in the Philippines, and she's learned everything about automation. She's setting up businesses. She's would have never thought that she would be building the systems for a company in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, in the United States that has
Right.
180 employees, that has a top line revenue of $60 million, 50, $100 million, and we're just learning that. So we see ourselves as creatives. We see ourselves as business artists, and the clients are really just appreciating it.
Now, did you found Segwik?
Yeah, Segwik was my baby, and so yeah.
What led you to have the I, I want to say what led you to have that confidence to say, you know what, I can do this.
The you know uh, stupidity sometimes. I don't know, arrogance, ignorance. No, all of those, all of the above. But one, I'm gonna give all of your listeners one of the best tips that they could ever do. Uh, Go out, put this on the screen if you want. The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, like the letter E,
Mhm.
Myth. And what Michael Gerber does in this quintessential business book, one of the only business books that sells more copies one year to the next, is he teaches people to see their business as a set of systems. He teaches people to recognize that your business has nothing to do with you and nothing to do with anything that you're personally talented in. In fact, he tells you that it's often a bad idea to get into business delivering a service of something that you're personally talented in, because then that forces you to be just the engineer in the process, and you get comfortable just being the delivery person, the guy in the back room. But a business, like a restaurant, is different than being a chef. A hair salon is
Mhm.
different than being, a hairstylist. A recording studio is different than being a mixing engineer. And so
Right.
those skill sets are entirely different. And what Michael Gerber in that book tries to make you understand is that point, is that you have to stop being the technician and start being the entrepreneur. Most
Mm.
most small businesses are a chef that gets pissed at their boss, quits, and tries to open a restaurant. A hairstylist that
Right.
gets pissed at their boss, has an entrepreneurial spasm, and then tries to open a business. And that puts people into a corner. And it's ironic and it sounds counterintuitive.
Mhm.
It puts people into this comfort zone that this invisible trap around their minds, where they can't break free because they're just stuck in the technical part of doing the work, and they lose sight that they have to build this framework, this Iron Man prosthesis around themselves.
Hmm. That's interesting, and correct me if I'm wrong. Is that the correct book that I put on the screen?
There you go. You did it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
everybody
So
has to download this book or listen to, like, it's actually a good audio book because he has this soothing, lovely voice that everybody would appreciate. and so he's one of my heroes, one of my business heroes, and it'll change your life. And so to answer your question, that book made me understand, and you asked the right question, the confidence to do this. It made me understand that if you could just set up the right set of systems, then you're going to have a business that is successful.
Wow, that's actually pretty interesting that that's where you got the concept, the understanding, the right opportunity presented itself. You launched it and you kept that momentum going. And when you started doing that, did you continuously keep reviewing the updating trends for businesses and for technology, or did you have somebody on your staff that was the one that was to, make sure to keep you up to date with like the new open AI information, the things that are happening around the world, or do you do that yourself?
I try to play with that stuff. In fact, I was building some GPTs a couple hours ago with some
Oh
of the new
wow.
features with Chat GPT. A lot of our website artwork was produced with some what was it, Mid Journey type of artwork. And so
Hmm.
Chat GPT and other AI tools are playing a larger role in what we're doing. And so I always try to stay on top of that. I think it's fascinating what they can do. I'm not scared. I don't see it as a threat. I see it as a tool that can be empowering. But then when it's all said and done and it's the end of the day, I like to like turn off. And so I know a lot of people in my industry, they'll when they turn off, they're just listening to more self-help books and personal development books and things. But I'll go to sleep to the sounds of Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about black holes and things like that.
Oh, that's actually pretty funny. So you turn off. Work stays at work with you.
Yeah. What entertains me is a whole different area of interest.
Hmm. Now, are there specific entrepreneurs that you really enjoy assisting versus another, like somebody that you feel like this person right here, if you have this particular situation, you are my ideal client.
Um, I get along with other visionary people, other people who are highly creative. Some might call them scatterbrained people, people who want to jump from one idea to the next. And so, if I'm the anchor in the room, then it's an interesting room to be in. And so,
Hmm.
I have a client in Texas who we've been developing apps and we've been developing websites and I just love that he's creative, he's visionary, and you take the good with the bad in all of these situations. And as I've gotten older, I've started to really try to become zen about people's quirks and people's different eccentricities. And you have people on
Mm.
staff that have different eccentricities, and what you start to realize if you can see past your own immediate frustration about some sort of quirk that happened in the moment is that the same
Hmm.
thing that was irritating about whatever just transpired is the same reason that that person excels in some other sphere of influence. And so they might not be
Mm.
fantastic at this one thing that you just wish that they were better at, but because they're lacking in that one thing, it's their mind is focused on some other thing. So they're a superstar in some other area. And so I try to look at people that way. And so but for me, I like visionary clients. I like nice clients. Nobody wants to get yelled at. Nobody wants to get, badgered, and and a little appreciation can go a long way. We all like a attaboy kind of, thing. But yeah, be nice to your business automation advisor day.
That's actually pretty interesting as well when you think about it like that. Um, and how would you think that your creativity plus your ability to be interested in technology allows you to thrive because you are thriving? So how is that correlation coming about?
The I people say, "Hey, how the hell did you get from music school pothead to like, software entrepreneur?" And I think the skill that you're looking for me to talk about is that the creative spirit of, not like when you're in music school or art school. I
Mhm.
think this is every art, every type of art. They tell you, just let it go, like, free yourself of the love of what you're making, and just put stuff on paper. If you're in music school, write 100 melodies in an hour. If you're in painting school,
Sheesh.
just paint a bunch of stuff, like, just get your
Mhm.
juices flowing. And then, so that you're not just falling in love with any one particular idea, like, you're able to
Mhm.
perform. But then, this idea of, you have to be willing to second guess your ideas. And so many people,
Mm.
their creative process is completely sterile. If you ask them to be creative, maybe they'll draw a circle and they'll dump something on, and that's the thing. And that's always going to be the thing, because that was the first thing they came up with. But the creative person, the true person with creative instincts, recognizes that, well, that's cool, but it also can be this, and it can be this, and it also can be this. And so any one idea, I started to realize this really early, like, you end up with a phrase, and is that phrase a subheading to your logo or your business? Or
Mm.
is that phrase a lyric in a jingle? Or is that graphic your logo? Or is it just some little badge somewhere? And so you have to be willing to take these ideas, and sort of take a square and try it in that round hole. Take that hole and try it in that
Mm.
square. And just, you're always trying to just see what this thing can be. And when you open your mind up to, like, what this can be, then the possibilities are endless.
And that's actually pretty interesting, especially with your analogies. It's allowing me to understand at such a rapid pace. Um, and we did get a comment here by Cedric.
Hey, what's up, Cedric? How you doing?
But yeah, that's actually pretty interesting. So, does that also mean that individuals on your team don't have to at times be constrained by a creative barrier limiting their ability to either submit a specific idea in regards to the process, or as well as having that open communication as a potential client with you, as they may have. You may have one way of seeing an optimized manner, but it's their business that you might as well let them, do their thing at times, or how does
Well,
that look?
um, I remember hearing this a few years ago. One of the major software companies, whatever their structured weekly calendar was, they would give every employee in some department 2 hours of, just do whatever you want and just be creative. And we haven't gotten that far yet,
Mhm.
because we're still on really tight deadlines, and we're a small but mighty team right now. But we had this conversation even as recently as this morning, to say, just like I said, don't fall in love with your first idea. In fact, if you're putting out a piece of content for us, don't feel that you get to the bottom of the page and you deliver that final period, and that, whatever that is, goes right to the next stage. Don't feel like you have to rush that. Just leave it in your
Mhm.
own queue, and then go to bed, or do whatever you were going to do, and take the time to come back to that and reevaluate that. And so it's me trying to teach it to others who may not have had these creative insights, that they need to, not necessarily need to, but they ought to adopt the same kind of creative process, the same kind of second guessing of your approach to things. And was this the right idea? Because this blog that's 1,500 words, those
Mhm.
1,500 words can be arranged in, I don't know, a billion kinds of ways, right? every
Right. You can A/B test it too.
exactly every single word. And so, is this going to be better or that's going to be better? Is this going to be better or that's going to be better? And you never know. And that's, like you said, that's where testing comes in. And that's why I love marketing. It's the blend of art and it's a blend of science.
Now, I wanna know, when you come on into a project, what is your favorite step in that process?
um I don't know, signing the contract. um
Getting the money. Hey,
yeah, no,
that's not hey, that's a good answer.
yeah,
It's not bad.
no,
Confirmed work.
the truth is that I really love working with entrepreneurs. I really love hearing people's visions. I really love that I'm hearing the same thing over and over from different companies, from different teams, which is telling me that we're really onto something. So
Mm,
we love that initial discovery, that creative process, and then we love the end of the process. Today we were wrapping up a project that has been going on for a year and a half now, maybe, with a client out of New York, and just building an epic piece of software. And to hear that the client was just getting giddy at finally seeing all the pieces come together, that's a really rewarding um, feeling.
now, I know you may not be able to say names and whatnot, but what would you say is your favorite feedback of a result that you provided to a client?
Um, well, I mentioned this fella that got his quoting process down from an hour and a half to
Mhm.
4 minutes. That's
That was your
nuts.
favorite one?
There was another client that we were working with. Imagine you have a list of 5,000 prospects, and they all live in
Mhm.
different areas of Hudson County, and they're all interested in different kinds of properties. They want to learn about different kinds of real estate, and you're spending 10 to 15 hours a month creating newsletters that are bespoke and unique to all of these different cohorts. And when you can
Mhm.
get 15 hours down to an hour and a half, that's a
Wow.
fantastic thing. um,
Yeah.
when you start to hear that, when you recall that, when the client recognizes that you started their project with over 1 million lines of data, and the data was in this completely unstructured database, and you've taken that data and you've brought it into a system that they could actually get utility out of, where they can
Mhm.
find the people who graduated from course XYZ in 1997 in the spring semester and know their uh, law practice type immediately. And they're appreciative of the steps that you took to get them there. Then that's an amazing experience. So just having that client be able to click a button to recall that information from data that was a complete disaster, just 6 months ago, that's a great feeling.
Now, how would you say you balance the fact that, you like doing music, mountain biking, being out in nature, with also having a tech focused career? Because as you mentioned, you really can't multitask. You can only really do one thing at a time.
you know um Balance is a thing that, I think we're all still seeking. I think I could definitely take a page out of some other people's playbooks to be able to find a little bit more of that. For now, it's kind of a little bit more of a hustle time for us. We've got a lot of things going on, but when I do, I can get out to. I love getting on my bike. I love riding around. Uh, Jersey City's got a great waterfront for any of folks that are living around there, and so that's a hobby. I have a few guitars laying around, and I look forward to a time where I could have a drum set in my house again.
Oh
That'll
wow.
be that'll be success when you could have a drum set again.
What would you say would be a piece of advice that you would have wanted to hear when you were first starting out this journey, and you were still just maybe slightly hesitant, and you wanted to get that that mentorship level kind of advice, what would that advice have been that would have enabled you to do what you're doing now, but just much sooner and with way more confidence?
Um, I mean, you hit the head. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. It's all about mentorship and who you know. And despite all of this stuff about spitting business theory and all of these people, these gurus that you scroll through on TikTok, there is a big cynical part of me that recognizes that you can do all of those things, but if you don't know the right people, you don't have the right mentors, it's going to be like trying to dig a tunnel in a mountain with a spoon. And sometimes, and sometimes,
Yes, that's a nice analogy.
yeah. So sometimes I feel that way, and a lot of people I know feel that way. And so,
Mhm,
I do feel a certain sense of pride that I don't think that I was necessarily well positioned early on to have to for this amount of success that we're going after, that I've had to fight for every little bit. And so I was lucky to have the mentors in my life that I was able to put together. I have great people who just believe in you. And I'll say this to anybody out there, that you get a lot of what I call well-intentioned bad advice. When you're going through
mm,
an entrepreneurial journey, you get people that love you, that want to see what's best for you. And well, why is it bad advice? Well, maybe it's good advice. Well, if you have this spirit that can't be caged, then it is bad advice. And
mm,
you have to be able to take that information and put that in the kind of box, the respectful kind of box that it needs to be in, so that you can go off on your journey. And just go out there and just start talking to people. There's no shortage of groups and chambers and chapters and business support groups, and they're all out there. No matter where you are, there's a local group where you're going to find somebody who is ahead of you in your entrepreneurial journey. You're going to find
mhm,
somebody that's behind you in your entrepreneurial journey. You're going to find people that are right next to you in your entrepreneurial journey. And you need to be willing and lack the having too much pride to be able to just go up and ask them questions, and do it in a way that doesn't turn people off. You can't
mhm,
just chew people's ears off, but you have to be
right.
inquisitive, you have to be curious, and you have to have a tribe around you.
And do you have, if you could abracadabra, do you have a specific either celebrity or business that you would love to go through this automation process with?
um like as a client, you're saying?
Whether a celebrity or a
Hmm.
business,
well
a specific one, like if you could abracadabra, if you
well
could expand the team to get this particular individual
when was the
or
last
company.
time you went on a flight? Like, where did you fly to last?
I recently flew to Tennessee,
All right. And do you fly United, American, Delta, Southwest?
typically Delta.
Yeah. And so you book on a website. The website's really sophisticated, knows everything about
Hmm.
you. There's a profile there. You get a great email follow up. You get upsells that try to sell you a
Yeah.
hotel, try to sell you a car, right? Uh,
Hmm.
when you're booking the flight, it's practically offering to walk your dog while you're away. When you're
Yeah.
2 days before, it's reminding you to, don't forget to check in. Yeah, check in
Hmm.
on this great app. You also get a text message. You get a push notification. You check in on this app. I never understood that. Like, you're 30 miles away, but you're checking in. I think they need a different word for that. Like, it's 2 nights before, but you're checking in. But these airlines, they just have this customer journey process down. And so whenever I'm working with any kind of client, I think of, well, if this bakery had the same processes as United Airlines, what would that look
Mm.
like? And again, like what did I mention before? It's like taking this square peg and seeing what it fits like in this round hole.
Hmm. Yeah, because in that case, as you mentioned previously, that you were able to assist a client reduce their time. If one of those big airlines wants to try your services and sees, hey, can you assist with the boarding process by 15 seconds? Because we've already known statistically, if we can squeeze in 15 seconds of faster boarding or whatever,
Right.
or if we can figure out adequate spacing, we can squeeze in an extra seat. That's $2.5 billion of increased revenue just by one additional seat or
Yeah.
whatever. And it's like, would that be, would you say like an ideal client for
So,
you? Like,
there's some really, really smart people figuring that stuff out with some expertise maybe that I still have to touch upon. I remember hearing stories about you know, why does if you go to Japan or the Far East, you end up looking at square watermelons. Well, square watermelons just pack better in a truck. So all of their
mm,
watermelons are being like grown in these glass squares where the root is just into a glass box, and you get a square watermelon. It's a lot easier to pack a square watermelon than it is like an oblong watermelon. And so I had a roommate at some point. I think he was working on a problem of, how do you just squeeze in one more pallet of milk into the back of a truck? And if you could do that, then this company is going to save millions of dollars. And those are pretty clever problems that I to solve. That's a little bit out of my purview, but I'd love to be next to the guy trying to figure that stuff out.
or at least being in the room, that network that you mentioned, being in the room, talking to the guy that solved that issue.
Well, what we're describing is you make money when you solve big problems. If you solve a little problem, there's only a little amount of money to be made. But
Preach.
if you can solve the bigger, like what problem did this thing solve? Like this thing
Right.
solved so many problems, just unbelievable. And it's a trillions of dollar industry, and just imagine the
Right.
problems that it solved. Meanwhile, like what problem did this thing solve? Like it's like,
Temporary boarding.
it's a smaller problem, right? And so
Mhm.
so the bigger problem you solve, the more money there is to make.
No, that is actually very true. Your ability to garner income as an entrepreneur is relative to your ability to solve a scaled problem.
Correct.
Scaled small, small payment. Scaled large, large payment. Scaled astronomical, like 1 to 2 seats of extra space on a big plane, even if they only pay you 0.001%. That's a lot because that's a trillion billion dollar
I mean,
industry, and to
in
make that impact, that's a lot.
in your programming world, like the world that you're in, think about a server, and you have hundreds of thousands of people all accessing the same server. And if you
Mhm.
can get queries, down from 101 milliseconds to 98 milliseconds, across
Mhm.
millions of queries, that's just tons of efficiency that you're gaining there.
Right. No, that's actually very true, and time is money, and as a business automation, you actually would be revising the business, seeing what needs to be done, and so I thank you so much, Pete, for joining us today, for giving us a lot of insight, showing us the journey that you took, remembering and reminding us that, anybody who has enough effort can actually put themselves in the right mindset and make things happen. And I thank you again for letting others know that they have a chance, as well as for the entrepreneurs that need that kind of review and insight. I think it would be a good idea to let them know again where they can find you at in case they are actually interested in using your services.
Find me on Segwik.com, go to LinkedIn, look me up. I'll be the same bald guy on LinkedIn that I am right here. Well, you got some people just listening. So, look for a bald guy on LinkedIn, look for Segwik.com. We want to speak with you.
Well, perfect. Thank you so much. And uh, hey, guys, if you want to take charge of the business transformation, Segwik.com. Check him out. Anyway, stay tuned for more gaming inspired productivity tips on a gamer's guide to productivity with Nico Pingan. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If you like this and had some fun, please let us know. Other than that, remember to keep sharing, keep liking, keep learning, keep finding that intricate balance between gaming and being a productive individual. It's Nico Pingan, and